I feel very intimidated to try and follow, try and follow what Jim just shared with you, and so I'm just gonna try to parallel some things he talked about and show you another angle that's been taken toward the same objective. Sunday, a lot of you were talking about how you'd like to have some takeaways that were practical, that you could go back and that you could try to implement in your own way. So I'll talk about what I've been doing, which has a lot of similarities to what Jim just described for you with chapelboro.com, at williamsonsource.com. But I'm going to talk about it more from the standpoint of how we've gone about it, so that you can think through if these kinds of like a structure that you could follow that might help you if you decide that you want to start experimenting in this way. 2 years ago at the last Future of Radio conference, I took a few minutes and explained that shortly after the conference we were going to launch williamsonsource.com, and our objective was to explore, can we find a digital model that is not this whole stacking pennies kind of paradigm? Is there a digital model, a local digital model, that we could find that would get us the kind of margins that we're accustomed to being in the radio business? And so we use 35 to 40% just as kind of a target number. And then to determine if and how it could be part of the future of radio for broadcasters. So we've looked at it specifically in that way, and we've approached it kind of with a hypothesis that we felt like we had a method to achieve this. And our strategy was to essentially use williamsonsource.com as a living laboratory. Our goal was not to make money initially. Our goal was to try as many things, as many ideas as came out onto the wall, if you will. We threw them all up there. We tried a lot of things. We have failed greatly at many of those things, but we have also found some things that really have worked well for us. And we've done that not only from the standpoint of, can we create an audience? We looked at, can we then monetize that audience? And is there scalability? Is it something repeatable in other communities? Williamsonsource.com became a local portal for Williamson County, which is basically the south suburbs of Nashville. It happens to be where I live. It was more cost efficient and just practical in a whole lot of ways for me to do this where I live. I also felt like when I was in the radio business, and Jim, when we just always looked for really great suburban markets around larger metros. It was just kind of a thing that I learned from Jim Hooker, and we always just repeated over and over again. And so I just went to what I knew. And the two primary communities in Williamson County are Franklin and Brentwood, and then there are four sort of smaller up-and-coming areas. It's one of the wealthiest counties in Tennessee. It's one of the wealthiest counties in America. And we felt like if we were going to do this without the benefit of an existing media outlet, an existing audience that we could build on, good place to try it. And nobody's from there. Everybody's transplanted from somewhere else. And there is a significant amount of local media. There's a radio station. There's several weekly papers. There are as many monthly magazines as there are people sitting in this room today. And we, of course, are still under the umbrella of all the networks and other television stations in Nashville. They have boots on the ground. Google has boots on the ground in our market. Living Social, Groupon, I could go on and on. There's boots on the ground from companies you've never even heard of, and that claim to be national digital companies. So we felt it was a really strongly competitive environment to test this out and see whether we could hold our own and carve out a place. We also wanted to assess needs, behaviors, preferences of small and medium businesses, very small businesses who would be our advertisers and our sponsors. We wanted to know, what is their digital IQ in general? We wanted to know, are they has there been a shift in how they think about buying advertising and how they assess what's working, what's not working? And lastly, we wanted to just assess the overall acceptance of digital options in the mix, because we felt those were all very important to our particular business model. And the implementation has been really interesting. We decided from a content standpoint, for the first year we pretty much focused on the content. We have sort of the horizontal strategy, which is the news, weather, traffic, sports, community events that we do every day. And then we have what we call our vertical content strategy, which I refer to as the Oprah model. My wife used to DVR the Oprah show every day, and when I was going to bed, she would sit there and put the Oprah show on. And so I think I, by just symbiosis, watched or heard a million Oprah shows over the years, and I learned a pattern to it. Monday was always the day when they were there to inspire you. It was always a story of angels or something, somebody overcoming something terribly horrible in their lives and making a great thing of it. It was Inspiration Day. Tuesday was always the day that Nate Berkus redid somebody's living room in 30 minutes. Wednesday was the day that one of the, who is the chef, she has her own show now. She always came in and told you how to make meals in 10 minutes. And then Thursday was always the day Susie Orman came and scared the crap out of you that you didn't have enough money saved and all these other things. And Friday was always the day that Dr. Phil came tell you that your relationship was crap and you need to work on that. We did something very similar. So Sunday is Faith and Inspiration Day. We have local pastors who comment on the news of the day, national stories, local things from a faith-based perspective. We also do stories about companies that are businesses or groups or whatever that have a sort of a faith-based connection. We did that because in our area, faith is just way out in front on just about everything that everybody does. Mondays we do health and fitness. Because we felt health and fitness was going to be a huge category of advertisers for us. We wanted to have a day that we focus on it. Tuesday is home and style. One of the things about a community such as this is that real estate is a big deal. There's all kinds of things happening with that. And we have a lot of boutiques. So we wanted to have a day that we could focus on them. Wednesday is food and wine. We have a ton of restaurants. We have a ton of wine stores. We have upscale audience listening, watching, reading, and we really wanted to cater to that. Also advertise restaurant, huge category for us. Thursday started out as sort of local business day. We've added real estate and automotive to that. And then Friday and Saturday we do a thing called Williamson Weekend, which is where to eat, play, and shop this weekend. And it really is the lifestyle basis. People move to Williamson County for the lifestyle, and so we emphasize that. It also gives us a vehicle to put our advertisers who cater to that aspect of life in Williamson County. And I say that not to say you should do that, but I say that to say we thought through who are our advertisers going to be, who is our audience, what's going to be most interesting to them, what's going to drive them. And we developed our content strategy is kind of like a funnel. We use social media extensively. And we use Facebook and Twitter primarily. We use Instagram sort of secondarily. And the guys are wanting to experiment with a thing called Vine. We have found that Twitter is highly indexed in our area, way more Twitter users than the average. And Vine is sort of a version of Twitter that allows you to use video more easily. And so the guys, several of them are using it. They want to fool with it. We're going to fool with it because we're experimenting. And so we use social media throughout the day. We program our Facebook feed like a hot clock on a radio station. So every morning at 6, the weather forecast pops in. Every morning at 7, the traffic pops in. And I'm kind of making some of this up, but throughout the day, there are things that automatically happen on our Facebook feed. They're not automated, but they are put in most of the time at least a little in advance. And we use that to drive people back to the site at times, we study very carefully when is our audience on Facebook, and we program content to them. What Lori was talking about earlier is really kind of ties all together, because just deciding, okay, we're going to use Facebook, what you'll find is if you go into the insights in your page and you look at who's liking you, and you find out, it tells you all kinds of things about them, including when they're on Facebook and how they're on Facebook. Are they on their phone? Are they on their tablet? Are they on their PC? And what we find is that our audience is shifting devices throughout the day. And so we've started to adapt what we're doing when, based on what device we think they're on and how much they're going to be able to deal with. If you're on your phone, keep it simple. If they're at home watching TV at night and they have the iPad in front of them, you can do more stuff. Plus the apps are better. And so they offer more rich, and so we've been thinking about it not just in terms of, is it Facebook that you're using, but what device is the person interacting on Facebook with at that time of day? Big deal.
These are individual messages, not a broadcast on Facebook. But
I'll show you our feed if you want to see it. It's what we do is we post a status update, which usually has which always has a link back to the site. So we use Facebook and Twitter. We put the links out there. It drives people back into our content where we monetize. We're making Facebook a lot of money. We probably have 35 to 60,000 reach on Facebook on a weekly basis. We have round numbers, 10,000 likes. And so Facebook is putting a ton of ads into the feed around what we're doing. And what we've also found out recently is they're also selling to the other media outlets. As soon as somebody likes one of our things, look below it, and all of a sudden pops up, there's the Tennessean, similar content. And so they literally sell our feed, our posts, our audience's interest in our posts to other people that are competing with us. And you can't stop it. But it's a unique combination. Social media really is where we start. So we program so much content, we have benchmarks of how much new content we want every day, and how much of that's video, how much of that is just other stuff. And to one of Jim's points about if a murder happens in Durham, well, we have a rule that if there's a day, like today it's snowing literally right now in Franklin, my wife texted me earlier, we will generally drop what we're doing if something unusual happens. Williamson County is the kind of place where 13 days out of 14, nothing's happening. It's quiet, it's how everybody wants it, and our police deal with terrible things like people parking in the wrong spot, or, it's horrible. The crime level, but in reality, if there's a crime, that's a big deal. We had a situation a couple weeks ago where a teacher in the big private school was arrested for child pornography. Guess what happened to our site that day? Guess what happens if there's an accident on I-65 and nobody can get in or out? Biggest day ever. About 3 weeks ago. And so we have a lot of, we have a system in place where our managing editor can basically text everybody and say, guess what, we're going on to our special circumstances today, it's a breaking news day, and so we change how we're going about everything. And that's something we developed over, partially out of frustration for missing a couple of things, but again, I could share with you all day like hard lessons we've learned, but I really want to talk more about the structure. Here's what we've learned so far. Medium and small business, very small business, the core of what would be, if I was a radio station, what I believe to be the core of what are my advertisers in this market. Extremely low digital IQ, extremely low. So low that we think that even talking about page views and click-throughs and Facebook posts and Twitter tweets just goes right over the head. And you can see the eyes glaze over. So what we spent about the first year doing was figuring out, how do we even talk to people about what we do? How do we talk to people about how digital can benefit them? And what we've come around to honestly looks more like a radio presentation than any digital company that walks in the door. We try to speak English to business owners about what digital is about. And actually, I'm going to show you an example. We really have started to, Jim always he'd say to me, I can't tell you how many times I was called into his office and he said, "You got to USA Today this," meaning I'm talking too complicated to people. You got to simplify. Well, we had to USA Today everything about digital. We don't talk about what page views can do or what exposures and click-throughs and any of that. What we talk about is we tell the story of how we're going to engage our audience and how we're going to bring them back to you. We don't say it, in all detail. And we talk about it in terms of the results. We don't have a page views, click-throughs discussion either. We believe that that's what leads you to the stacking pennies paradigm. And the only way you get to the 35 to 40% net margin paradigm is if you stop having those conversations. What we deliver is on average, about 98% of our web traffic is 100% local to the trading area of our advertisers. And so what I would say to any of them if they question me on pricing is, I'm delivering the most targeted web audience that you're going to find. Every one of these people could come into your business tomorrow and buy something, and that's worth more than a bid on Google, or it's worth more than a bid on Facebook. And we honestly, by focusing on results and by using tactics that are designed to get results for the advertiser, we don't ever have those conversations. I've had 2 advertisers ask me what kind of page views they're getting, what kind of impressions they're getting. They were both agencies. And we've been forced into a couple of conversations with agencies about it. But we've always been able to justify, and none of them have gone away. What we've found is that especially with very small business and medium business, the less sophisticated advertisers, their paradigm has shifted only in the sense that they understand they need to incorporate digital into their plan. But they're not incorporating all of the ability we have with analytics and metrics and just all the things we can do on the back end with digital products. They're not incorporating any of that into how they decide what's working, not working. I have more people tell me that because they got more likes on Facebook, they love us. Because a customer came in and said they loved the video we did, they love us. Nobody has said, "Wow, you guys are getting us all these impressions and click-throughs, and we love you." We never talk about it. They love that they go and see friends and customers walk in and say, I read that you were doing this event today on Williamson Source. Customer for life. It sound any different than selling radio? I used to love doing remotes. Not because I loved doing remotes. I hated doing remotes. But I liked customers to have remotes. Why? Because if 10 people came in, they knew, they made that connection in their head. Radio brings in customers, and a customer for life. We're just doing a lot of the same things. And I don't think it requires rethinking your business to be doing digital things. And maybe that's a little bit parroting what Jim was saying. But I think that, especially in our market, because we have so many of these pure play digital companies coming in and calling on people, they go straight into a product-based, let me tell you all about us, and they use a lot of language that to the average small business owner just means nothing. They have no comprehension of it whatsoever. And so we have learned very quickly to stop that. Just don't do it. And we go ahead and do a consultative needs assessment-based selling process. And we will typically bring people back around to a couple of things that we kind of planned going in, but we have learned not to talk about the product, to ask to assess needs. And I wish we would have just started doing that from the beginning, but we were very excited about it. We wanted to, we wanted to share, here's this wonderful thing. And the biggest thing that made me nervous about this whole experiment has been that when you start day one, nobody knows the brand whatsoever. For the first 6 months, we'd walk into places and they were like, "What? What is that?" And and still to this day, I think it's easy to find somebody. We've been at this just about 2 years. I think it's still to this day, it's easy to find people who have never heard of us.
Steve, when you go see them, do you ever deal in the concept of spec spots?
Yeah, we do it a lot. We were very lucky in this process. About 6 months ago, we found this little freelance designer, and she's got a great eye for small, the small space. And I sat down with her and I had a meeting, and I said, here's all the research I have on what makes people click ads online. And she just took that and ran with that, and I said, these are kind of the parameters I'd like to see in every ad, but we want every ad to really pop off the site. And we're not hitting home runs on every last ad we do, but she has more than doubled our click-through rate since she started doing our ads. And she, in several cases, client has provided creative. We've made new creative and sent it over, and they've gone with our creative instead. We haven't been afraid to say to the customer, this isn't going to do, we don't think it's going to do what you want it to do. Sometimes customers or even their agencies try to make digital ads like they're making newspaper ads, and they put the proverbial 8 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag. You have to be willing to say, don't do that. We're actually transitioning right now to our own proprietary video streaming. We're going to stop using YouTube, and that allows us to start putting our own 15-second video ads in. And over the next 30, 45 days, that'll be complete. And we've had the ability since the beginning to live stream, but then we had to kind of go to YouTube for the fixed videos that are not live. And this new setup that we've gone to is relatively inexpensive, but gives us a lot more capabilities. And the reason for that is we're getting things with video will get 35 to 55% more action than things that don't.
What are you using for video?
We're using a company called streamingmediahosting.com, having looked at a great number of them.
Steve,
Yeah.
do you run it in the content, do you run into many copyright issues, or do you own all of them?
We've run into it a couple times. I'm trying to avoid doing events where music is being played that is ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, because I do not want to have to license the site. What we are doing is we're using a production library that we own. So if we put music behind our videos or whatever, we have full rights to use it. At some point, I think it's inevitable we're going to have to license the site to do all the things we've come up with ideas, but I've really been trying to resist that as long as possible. We do broadcast a lot of live events, like the Chamber of Commerce every other month has all the mayors together it's called Breakfast with the Mayors. We do that live. We're now going to, I think this month we're starting to do all the chamber meetings live. We've tried to start doing more live events because what we find is people will say in advance, "Hey, we're going to be live streaming this, so tune in," and numbers go up. And then it's available as an archive forever too. So I'm trying to put that off as long as possible. Is the short answer. What we're finding with the audience is even more interesting. I don't know, the one big question I have is I think consumers' expectations of media have become completely untenable. We will bust our butts to get something together and turn it around quickly and get it on the site within a short period of time. People will be like, that took forever. and their expectation is that they're just going to get, even down to this micro level, whatever they want, whenever they want it, however they want to get it.
Where's their radio customers?
They're consumers, and I think that the ESPNs and the NBCs and all the people that put all this stuff and they make it available through all these channels. My point, I guess, is at the local level, we're not exempt. A good friend of mine always he says, look, the David Letterman show is the same in Keokuk, Iowa as it is in New York City, right? And so why would anybody in Keokuk, Iowa expect less than somebody in New York? The problem is, we're going crazy, and we're thinking, we'll high five each other back at the office. That was awesome, what we just did, and people will be, yeah, whatever. And it's not fast enough. I don't know that we're ever going to fully catch up to the expectations of the audience. But what we have found is when we first started out, I said just be better. Have a better angle on something, or have video when they don't, or have something better that makes our story better. What we have decided about 6 months ago is, you know what, be first and then be better. Keep adding to it until it's the best. That is what has really helped us take off. Because what I have found is the difference between being first and being second means if we're second, we only get about 20% as much traffic as if we're first. So we will rush and get anything up that we can point to and get a link out there on Facebook and Twitter to start driving people in, and we'll just keep updating it as we go. That's the beauty of the web, is you can just keep adding to the story. Oh, we got a great photo, good, drop it in. And then go back on Facebook and put a comment, hey, we got a new photo, we just got a photo in from the scene of that accident, let's get that. And it just keeps getting passed around. If you're first. If you're second, forget it. Nobody cares. And overload is real. What we're seeing is that the audience is completely overloaded. They have to filter, and it's very hard for them to decide what makes it through the filter. Nobody is reading. We started out with a 350-word limit on anything that we were doing in text. And we had a loose rule that if it didn't have some kind of multimedia, don't run it. We've had to make exceptions in a couple of cases, but we're reducing that text count down, the character count, because 350 words is even more than most people will read online anymore. And on average, 60 to 65% of our visits are coming on a mobile device, meaning a tablet or a phone. And 350 words on a phone might as well be the Bible. It might as well be the whole Bible. And people just go, what? And so what we're moving toward is something very similar to Jim, in that we're moving to strong visuals with a little bit of text and some sort of provocative headline. And the provocative headline part is what we're having the most struggle with. Is we're doing a lot of training about how do you write this so that it's going to make somebody read it. Headlines is probably our weakest aspect of that strategy right now. But and what's funny is because we start with social media, what we found is competitors put the whole story right there in the Facebook post. Mistake, huge mistake, because nobody ever clicks through to see the story. We have a competitor, a competitor that's been at this for 3 years longer than us, very well established. They send an email out every morning. What do they put in the email? Everything that they've added to the site today, everything. And there's no point in clicking through to their site. And yet, that's where all their ads are. That's where they're making their money. And so I'm hoping they don't watch the video, because I want them to keep doing that. We put a teaser out that forces you to come into the story to find the details. Not because we want to force people to do that extra step, because we have to. Because otherwise, the only person who makes money on that is Facebook.
Steve, are you using a teaser in an email, a daily email?
We're not doing an email. we have found that that the audience wants the connection to us with social media, so they can kind of pick and choose. And our audience is overwhelmingly women 35-64. If you look at the Facebook penetration of women 35-64, and you look at our penetration women 35-64, it's like this. And men too. We're to that point with men. We call it moms and dads with kids. And what we're finding is that the Facebook, the social media connection is where they want to connect with us. We have the ability for people to sign up for an email on the site. Very few do. We do send an email out once a month that's kind of like a promo for upcoming big stuff that we're going to be covering. And it provides a platform for us to put our advertisers, but also to say, you know, hey, coming up this month, we're going to be at Brewfest, we're going to be at this, we're going to be at that, we're going to be at this. One of the things we've done is we've taken a very radio-like approach to promoting the website. We do remotes all the time. We're at community events, we're at different things, and we have a whole setup. Well, most radio stations don't have a setup as good as ours anymore. So we have backdrops, we have setups, we have a kiosk. We can, you know, depending on the elaborate, how many people we're going to interact with, we'll go big or we'll go small. It also sometimes depends on who we have available to go to it. We're running light.
Are you doing those remotes at the village meetings and stuff? Are you doing the video too, or is it just audio?
Yeah. What we found is if we send a video crew, say, to downtown for a festival, that day and the next couple days will be huge for new people coming to the site. Why? Because they see a video crew that has a WilliamsonSource.com logo on them, and now it's to the point where people know our people, and so when they see us, they come over, hey, put me in the shot and stuff like that. And that is the kind of interaction that told me we were on a good path when we started getting that. So I mentioned we're in the process of transitioning to proprietary streaming versus YouTube. Again, the only person who makes money when we run a video on YouTube is YouTube. And so this gives us control over our ad insertion in and around our videos. I also wanted to avoid a competitor being able to specifically buy ads into my YouTube videos. I don't think YouTube's going to leave us go too much longer without forcing us to either pay something to not have ads on our videos or have ads on our videos. Why? Because they're going to begin to crescendo on their ad generation, and they're going to need a way to create more inventory. Facebook in fourth quarter, and they haven't commented on this at all. They've refused to say anything about it. But in October, all of a sudden, right going into Christmas season, we found that all of a sudden the average reach of a post on our Facebook thing, even though we add hundreds of new people a week, all of a sudden the reach started going down, and down significantly, like by more than half. And so our social media guy was like, hey, something's up. Facebook is doing something. And there was a survey done of all the largest, the big brand companies, probably by their agency or somebody, by their publicist. And what they found was that the average the average company had been throttled, their reach had been throttled about 20%. Ours was closer to 40% initially. And Facebook refuses to acknowledge it other than to say, yeah, we did some throttling. But they had a huge, massive fourth quarter. And they have a big number to make this year. So it makes sense that they would, force us, all the free marketing that everybody likes to say they have to all their Facebook likes. I don't know how free that's going to be for how much longer. We found that when we incorporate Facebook advertising as part of our marketing strategy because it gives us the ability to target right into the neighborhoods where we want to develop relationships. And even down to the gender and age range that we're looking for. Basically, anything you've told Facebook about yourself, I can buy. I can say, I want that person and that person and that person because you meet all the criteria that I'm looking for. I can even buy based on what you like. Like, only give me people who like a whiskey company, or or who like this competitor of mine or whatever. So we have tried to, we've actually done some scenario option development about what Facebook's going to do and how that might impact us, because Facebook is unfortunately a really big part of what's at the top of our funnel for driving our traffic. The other thing that we have spent a lot of time working on is our cost metrics. We figured out some great ways to generate content that people liked. Now we're trying to figure out how to do that within a better budget, do it more cost efficiently. Because frankly, and I was afraid to do it, when we added up and actually figured out the cost of what was actually hitting the site, like on a per story basis, video was really expensive to do. And so we've now figured out how to get enough video, enough finished video out of the time and money we're putting in that we can actually make money with it. It was because it was first about just seeing would anybody care. And once we knew that they liked it, then it was okay, now can we do this within our objective? So we're really trying to do some things with that. Our consumers are saying one thing and doing another. I know that's shocking, but we took the tact as part of our plan that we were not going to be, another way we were going to differentiate from other things is moms with kids in Williamson County do not want to watch the 10 o'clock news and see the murders and all whatever else is happening crazy up in Nashville. And so we took and most of our competitors thrive on bad news. So we took the tack that we were going to stay away from negative stories, and we were going to try to find original stories that were positive and that told good things about our area. And the exception we make to that is if there's a safety issue or some imminent disruption that's going to happen to people's travel or where they work or anything like that. An example of that would be, car accidents are an example of that because it impacts traffic, and that's a big deal for us. Another example is we had a situation where some guys backed a pickup truck into a Harris Teeter grocery store, hooked up the ATM and tried to drive away with it. And the ATM did whatever ATMs do to stop this from happening and blew itself up or whatever they do. And so these guys were on the loose in one of the most upscale neighborhoods in Franklin. And they were reportedly had a gun. So we said, okay, we're on this story, and we ran with it. And even though it was not the kind of thing we typically like to do, because there was a safety issue, we felt like our audience would give us a payoff on it, and totally did. But we're not we're not doing the investigative kind of stuff. We leave that to the Tennessean or whoever else wants to fool with it, the newspaper. We don't see any reason to go make enemies with advertisers by saying bad things about a business. We don't see any point in doing the police blotter, because we just don't think that's our brand.
How did you get that info, Steve? Do you monitor a police scanner?
We totally, yeah. We're blessed in that the City of Franklin Police Department is recognized as one of the top 10 police departments in the United States for using Twitter. They tell us everything they're doing. They'll tweet, hey, we're responding to a structure fire right now at this address. Boom, we get somebody over there. They say, hey, there's an accident over here at this location. Boom, we pull up the traffic cam and we're there. So in that, what we've been very good at is finding free content like that. We work with the Parks and Rec department, and we're just as interested in how the kids' soccer scores were on Saturday as we are whether the Predators won tonight or whatever. The localness of the stuff, and we're starting a feature. Hopefully it's on there tomorrow. Or the next week, that is, we're working with the county trust, the Register of Deeds. We're going to have all the real estate transfers every week, free. Well, $8 for the report every week. And so lots of stuff like that we're finding is out there, and we're just aggregating it and putting it back out there under our brand. And most people are very happy when we ask for it. It's the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Franklin, which was a famous Civil War battle. That kind of Civil War history is a big deal where we are. And we went to the county archivist and said, would you do a whole series for us of weekly videos on the 150th anniversary of the Civil War? She said, of course. How many do you want? We said, well, could you do 5? She says, I could do 50. So we're doing 50. And it cost us nothing. We filmed them all in one swoop, and we're going to use them all year. So lots of free content, or free or low-cost content that is highly interesting. And there are a ton of people coming to town for this 150th, it's the sesquicentennial celebration. And we've had no problem finding sponsors for this kind of stuff. We've had no problem finding people who want to read about it. And the head of an ad agency in Franklin, who controls a lot of business we haven't been able to get, is a Civil War buff. Duh.
Steve, it's funny that you say it. As a radio guy, I keep trying to think of how I can get people to volunteer to bring my radio station free, as much stuff as they're willing to bring to a website free. It all has to do with the mores and the ethic of the time.
Yep.
But it's remarkable to me what
We
people are willing
ask. We were getting tons and tons of press releases from the library system. We went to the library people and said, would you just write the articles? Sure. They give us photos, they give us, if we gave them a video camera, they'd probably record videos. We went to the head of the chamber and said, would you write an article about, the growth of Williamson County every week? Sure. He was writing it anyway. He was putting it out on his Twitter. There were just all kinds of things. The things with the pastors. The pastors are writing these things to their congregations every week. We just asked them to give it to us too and have permission to use it. Tons of that stuff.
How big is your staff then, given the free stuff and what you're doing?
We have 3 full-time doing content and everything you see on the site, and we have 1 full-time doing sales, and then we have 2 moms with kids who work part-time in some of the smaller, in 2 of the smaller communities, selling, just on commission, and something to do, keep them busy. And we have about I'd say a half a dozen part-time people who are kind of on call and they either shoot video or they write or they do whatever. Some of them are multi-purpose. And then we have that graphic designer who works on call, kind of as needed. Most of it's $10 to $15 an hour.
But 3 full-time people who are doing all the news coverage and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's evolved. We've tried a lot of things with staffing, and we've kind of arrived at something we like right now.
Those people with full-time web designer, is there?
No, I should say, to be fair, that my partner in this whole venture is the web designer. But once it's set up, he doesn't really have a lot to do with the day-to-day. I mean, he's helping with more structural changes that are adding features or whatever. What we have found is that kids, pets, safety, and bad weather are the big things that spike traffic. And so if we're talking about kids and pets, and if it's snowing today, there'll be a big day. And stories with video are performing a lot better than things without. That's our big differentiator. We're selling with video. That's something that no one else is coming in to be able to sell, is the video aspect. It's to the point now where for about $3,000, you can have a really good portable video setup that'll also include a MacBook that will edit all the video. Round numbers. You can get fancier if you want, but you don't need to.
Do you do any texting programs?
We do not. What we're in the process, we also resisted doing apps for a while because we wanted to understand if people would just use the existing content in HTML5, it dynamically shifts. So if you're on a cell phone, it looks one way. If you're on a tablet, it looks another. If you're on a big screen, it looks another. If you were on this screen, it would look a lot different. What we have found is that people ask us all the time, do you have an app? Do you have an app? Do you have an app? So we're making apps. The one benefit we see in having apps is that we'll have the push capability. So I'm concerned about what apps do to the traffic on the site, and because our ability to insert ads changes in an app. And so that's why I didn't like the idea of the apps, not because I'm opposed to the concept of apps. We do apps for customers in other parts of our business, but I worry about our ability to drive impressions. And you can have a huge audience, but no way to communicate, your sponsor messages. And that's why we're cautiously getting into that. I would also say that the on-site, the original content, where we're doing original video content, seems to be a really good driver for us. So just to kind of bring you back to the whole idea of our hypothesis that we started from, we believe the hypothesis is proving correct. We're kind of at a break-even point. We believe that with what we've got booked out, that this summer is going to put us into the profit. And so we believe we can achieve the 35 to 40% net margin that we're talking about. We need a little more time to do that, but we see it, how we get there. And about 6 months ago, we put our sales effort really into full tilt, and the payoff has been huge. We're now getting the accounts that were holdouts, and we're starting to be part of the automatic, conversation of things you have to buy if you're in Williamson County, and that was kind of the next step. And the other thing I should say is we're not just selling the inventory on the website. We're promoting ourselves as a full digital marketing services company. So we're managing ad campaigns, search campaigns, and other ad campaigns that are inventory not on our site. We set up Google and Facebook advertising for customers. We have a monthly, we call it the Digital Basics. It's $300 a month, and it's the minimum we feel any business should be doing online. And we help you to manage your profiles. Vast majority of businesses we walk into haven't even claimed their Google Places account, and that's the data that Google uses to find you and to figure out when you're relevant to a search. It's a big part of it. And most people don't even do it. So we help them through some basic things, and that gets back to that low digital IQ. We do some basic things that help people to be more successful in the digital realm. And the inventory on digital marketing services is limitless. So we think that's what really is great about the model that gets you to those net margins, because you're not limited by how much you can monetize on that website in any way. And I'll leave you with the thought, I think all of you are very well positioned to do exactly what we did, only be way more successful in the same period of time. The reason is that I think we as radio people relate to the way very small business thinks. We've been doing this long enough, we've been selling with them to them long enough that we already have a good understanding. And it's adapting to the need they've identified to I equate sort of the digital space as this big giant fire hose going by, and people are just trying to figure out how to get a drink from this fire hose without getting blasted out the door. And so we position ourselves as we're the ones who help you get a drink from the fire hose. And I think that you all are very well positioned to be able to do that too. And you understand results-based consultative selling. That's how we've been selling radio for a long, long time. It's how I first learned it. There are people in this room who probably did a lot to pioneer that concept. And I would say know your culture, though. One of the things that makes Jim Hevner so successful with this is he understands what his organization is capable of doing or not doing, and they did this in a way that made sense for them. To go and do exactly what I did or exactly what Jim did makes no sense for you, more than likely. But the structure of how we've gone about it, I think, can tell you a lot, and hopefully gives you the confidence to go back and try something. I think that it would be a complete waste of this experience to not go back and just force yourself to do something that you are afraid to do. It doesn't have to be expensive. This was not expensive. It doesn't have to be on a grand scale. This was not on a grand scale. It just needs to be. And I can tell you that if you're one of the people who came here trying to find some inspiration, trying to find something that would reinvigorate your own excitement about your business when you go back, this kind of thing will absolutely do it. I was pretty burned out. I had come off of a bad experience, and I was like, "Oh, geez, what am I getting into?" The excitement of doing this, the excitement of trying things new, the excitement of all the people that got involved in this and their enthusiasm for it, really just completely turned around my thought process, my mindset. And I wake up very excited about this every day. I wish I could spend all of my time on it. It's one of the more incredible learning experiences I've ever had, and that is really contagious. And I just wanted to share with you the biggest advantage, the biggest benefit I think I've gotten out of this. Whether it becomes a long-term business for me or not, this experiment has really reinvigorated my own excitement for what I do, and for, honestly, I would love to right now convince a couple of guys that own a radio station back in Franklin to sell me that radio station at some reasonable price, because I would immediately partner it with this, and I think I would just kill. I think it would accelerate what we're doing without question and in a boundless way. So that's a little bit about it. I'm happy to talk off, separately if you have specific questions about how we've gone about anything or anything we've learned about certain things. But I can tell you that I had a unique opportunity to experiment in a way that was very low risk. I think if you go back and you think about what's a way for me to do this that's very low risk, the payoff, the ROI on spending a fraction of your time on something like this, even if you don't feel you have the time, even if you don't feel you have the money, even if you don't feel you have the people, you'll learn an incredible amount about you and your organization in the process. And I really strongly encourage you to do something, go back and do something that you're afraid to do. Not necessarily this. We've all got something in mind. I'm sure you've all made plenty of notes about, oh, I'd love to be doing that. Go back and do it in some small way, just to prove that you can leave time in your day to innovate and to really accomplish some of the things that we're talking about here.
Steve, would you mind sharing how long it took you to get it into black?
About 9 months. And it was a painful 9 months. But it really was not a massive amount, it was not a massive amount of money that I invested. To me, it was a lot of money, but in a grand scheme of, it wasn't a lot of money. It was a lot of money because it was only me. If I had, 2 or 3 other friends in this, it would have been a lot easier. But it was just enough so that I had skin in the game, and I wasn't going to ignore it. Because, Sean Ross had this saying of, sometimes we invest just enough to waste it. You should be uncomfortable with the amount of money it is, even if it's, in the grand scheme, it's not a lot of money. It should be enough money that it's not easy to just, oh, well, we'll worry about that later. We got a fire burning over here right now. It was enough money I could not do that. Let's put it that way.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.